And Seahawks training camp might be winding down, but the competition continues for starting roles and playing time as we give you another look at it all playing out on another gorgeous summer day in the Pacific Northwest here on Q13 FOX and Seahawks.com. As we welcome you to Seahawks Training Camp Live alongside former Seahawks receiver Michael Bumpus, I'm Aaron Levine. Bump, what are the starting jobs that still need to be finalized before next week's preparation for the season opener in Atlanta?
There really aren't too many. I mean, you look at that center spot, they're still trying to figure out who's that center going to be. I believe it's going to be Ethan Posick. You can say maybe the nickel spot, but I feel like it's going to be Marquise Blair. You see the strides that he's made there. Look at that other corner spot. Maybe Quentin Dunbar has won that spot. We think if that's not his spot now, he's eventually going to get that spot. Honestly, I think they're all set. And then maybe that number 3, it's all a bunch of maybes out there. You know, that number 3 receiver spot, it's like, all right, Philip Dorsett, you're banged up. We'll see what happens there. You bring in Pete Richardson. Has he picked up this offense well enough for them to throw him in the mix? John Ursua is banged up. So I think they have an idea who they are at every position, but a bunch of question marks because of health, and then that center position, they just haven't named anyone yet.
As we take a look at the first-round draft pick, Jordan Brooks, who has started training camp at the weak side linebacker position. We'll talk a little bit about the competition there. Of course, that is also KJ Wright's spot and how Brooks might be able to contribute to this team, especially on special teams. And by the way, practice was pushed back a little bit today with special teams starting at 2:45. So don't be worried if you don't see a lot of players on the field right now. They're going to be slowly trickling out as we approach 2:45. We should also mention that rosters need to be cut down to 53 players by 1 o'clock Pacific time on Saturday. Some of the players who are cut might end up on the practice squad. And this year you can actually have 12 players on the practice squad, which is 2 more players than last season. And then on game days, teams will be allowed to expand their roster to 55 players, with 48 of them active, by temporarily promoting players from their practice squad. Either way, right now, the Seahawks have 80 players on their current roster. These are going to be a very couple of difficult days for John Schneider, Pete Carroll, and the entire coaching staff.
Yes, it is. It's going to be harder on those players, though. The guys who know they're on the bubble. I was one of those guys. Back in my day, there were about 3 cuts, so you kind of knew where you stood. With these guys, I mean, some of them might have a false sense of themselves. And then with this coaching staff, they have so many players to evaluate, they might miss somebody. So it's a different scenario all the way around. You just have to trust that you put in enough work as a player, and as a coach, they just have to trust that they've done their job and evaluated every single player and have an idea what they bring to the table.
That linebacker room is absolutely stacked. So you take a look at a guy like Ben Burkervin, the former Husky, going into his 2nd season. Now talking with one of the linebackers coaches, Aaron Curry, who was a first-round draft pick by the Seahawks back in the day. What are Ben Burkervin's chances of making the final roster?
I think he's on the bubble, but I think he's going to make the team. And I think he'll make the team because, one, you hear about them talking about how smart he is. He can play almost every position at that linebacker spot. And 2, he's going to be a big contributor on special teams. When he was in college, his main thing was his motor. He goes 100%. He plays fast. He knows what he's doing. Those are the type of things you look for when you're putting guys on special teams. How fast do they play? Do they understand angles? Do they understand lanes? And defensive players do a great job of doing that. I'm looking forward to him. I think he makes the team.
Many of these young players are not able to do what Michael Bumpus did, and that is to excel in preseason games and earn a spot on the roster. Another guy who knows a thing or two about earning his way onto an NFL roster, also undrafted back in 2004, Jordan Babineau, standing by live at the facility. Jordan, how tough would it have been to earn a spot with no preseason games when you were a rookie?
Hey, Aaron. Hey, Mike. You know, I've been thinking about that. And, you know, for someone like myself and Michael Bumpus, who came into the NFL as an undrafted free agent, had to utilize that those off-season practices to really, number one, gain confidence in playing at this level, and number 2, show the coaches that we can play at this level. I think for these young players now, as rookies are coming into it, it's going to be a tough time for them to make the final roster, considering that coaches and the staff will have to make cuts based on how they practice.
In that secondary back in your day, what are your thoughts of the secondary? Here's some comparisons to that one group. I don't want to say the name. What are your thoughts on the secondary?
You know, Bump, I really like the secondary because they're talented and they're interchangeable. You look at the cornerback position, you're talking about securing that starting position at the right corner as Trey Flowers is battling Quentin Dunbar for that position. I really like what Trey Flowers has been doing throughout his young career. Now he's entering what has been his most prominent competition at that right corner position, bringing in a veteran like Dunbar, who's played well and solid over the last few years. And then, of course, you add the element that the Seahawks are paying him a pretty hefty salary this year. I think for Trey Flowers, the one thing that he has to do is just remain confident in himself. He's a talented player. I think there were times last year where he questioned himself and probably didn't take the right guess or make the right play or the right footwork toward making that play. He was always in position. And certainly when you bring in someone like Jamal Adams, who has the ability to be that dog inside the box, very similar to a Cam Chancellor in his day. You mentioned the Legion of Boom, but that's really his style of play, in the box around that linebacker position. You've seen him with the New York Jets. He blitzes the quarterback, he can cover the tight end, and he plays well in space. And then you add the second-year player, Marquise Blair. He's been a highlight, I think, in the secondary much throughout training camp. It'll be great to see how well Ken Norton and Pete Carroll implement him into that nickel position. I think they could really be a big secondary in terms of size and making plays on the football. Going to make it tough for opponents to throw the ball down the field.
Marquise Blair with 2 interceptions in one of the team's mock games about a week ago or so. Ken Norton talked about how much talent they have in the secondary. What is the standard for the Seahawks secondary this season, and has the bar been raised this year given the offseason acquisitions?
Well, Aaron, look at what happened last year. I mean, certainly when we've gotten accustomed to understanding and seeing this defense under Pete Carroll, they have been one of the best in the NFL. Last year, they took a step back, really, in what I would say just some growing pains. Certainly in that transition, there were some players who got a lot of playing time. A bunch of young players got a chance to get some playing time. Ugo Amadi was one of those players who stepped in last year and got some playing time as well at that safety position. And then they also made some changes on the back end. Cedric's no longer here. But from a depth perspective as well, Lano Hill was one of those players that stepped in and added some value to the Seahawks secondary last year. When you look at them in comparison to last year, I would say they've already gotten better, certainly. And, of course, now that they have a competition battle at that right cornerback position, I think this secondary has the potential to be better than last year's secondary. But certainly, Aaron, they always have to go out and prove it.
Jordan Babineau, fresh off a very admirable performance in the Washington State Mid-Amateur Golf Championship, bringing us hole-in-one worthy analysis. We're going to have much more with him coming up. It's great to see Babs competing still, right?
Yeah, Babs, I'm still waiting on my turn, man. I'm trying to get out there with you. You got to give me like 10 strokes, though.
Thanks, Bump. Anytime I can make you a foursome, you got it.
Well, we know this. Jordan Brooks certainly has a couple of leaders to look up to in Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. Brooks said he is not blowing smoke when he says that Bobby and KJ are the first to arrive to the facility and the last to leave. So they are clearly setting the right example for the rookie linebacker who you see right there and all of the other young guys on the team. We're going to be back with more Seahawks Training Camp Live coming up next on Q13 FOX and Seahawks.com.
The world is changing quickly, and while things are getting back to normal, the truth is, normal will be different. For him, her, and the rest of us. But change is what we make of it, and our job is still to help you figure it all out. Q13 News. All local. All together.
You need more layers, diagonal layers.
I got it, Ron. Thanks.
Leave him alone, Dad. Oh, honey, you should use ice blocks instead of cubes.
No, Bud Light Seltzer goes on top.
Diagonal layers.
Did you pre-chill the Bud Light lemonades?
Need more ice. And diagonal layers.
I mean, if you're gonna do it right.
I don't need my hands getting cold.
Why don't you try using the Plumsky method?
Brings out the citrus notes.
Dad?
Gotta crush the ice, son.
Okay, I'm out.
What's his problem?
Whenever packing the cooler really matters, there's a Bud Light there.
We all want to belong.
We want respect and understanding.
We want someone to have our back.
We want a better life for the ones we love.
That's why over 1 million of us are members of BECU.
Because we know that together we can do so much more than we ever could apart.
It's not banking as usual. And that's exactly the point.
So join us.
BECU, more than just money.
I'm a Verizon engineer.
And I'm part of the team building the most
powerful 5G experience for America.
It's 5G ultra wideband, and it's already available in parts of select cities.
Like Los Angeles.
And in New York City.
And it's rolling out in cities around the country.
With massive capacity.
It's like an 8-lane highway compared to a 2-lane dirt road.
25 times faster than today's 4G networks.
In fact, it's the fastest 5G in the world. From the network more people rely on. This is 5G built right, only on Verizon.
What is anticipation? Is it making an entrance? Or making a move? Is it going out? Or going all in? Is it a chance encounter? Or maybe just a night out with your friends? What are you waiting for? Seattle's closest. Snoqualmie Casino.
Got a few words for us, Mr. Abbott?
It's such an amazing feeling to be able to take the Lombardi Trophy back to Seattle and the people of the Northwest. And the 12th man has supported us in such an amazing way all year.
Hard to believe that was 6.5 years ago, but what a moment with the late Paul Allen hoisting the Lombardi Trophy after the Seahawks won Super Bowl 48, a dominating performance over the Denver Broncos. And you can relive that entire game this Sunday night, part of our weekly airing of Seahawks Classics. That's this Sunday night at 7 o'clock right here on Q13 FOX, your official Seahawks station. As we welcome you back to Seahawks Training Camp Live and the 2020 edition of the Hawks, hoping to hoist the Lombardi Trophy in the air at the end of Super Bowl 55. Which is currently scheduled to be played in Tampa, Florida. But a lot of work to do before then just to get there. A number of rookie draft picks addressed the media this afternoon before practice. Let's start with first-round draft pick Jordan Brooks, who you see there, who has been working most of training camp at the weak side linebacker position. That's the same spot as KJ Wright, and here's what he had to say when asked about potential playing time this season.
Yeah, everything is earned. So, you know, I got the opportunity to compete. That's what I've been doing, and we'll see what happens.
Again, as you take a look at Alton Robinson, another one of the rookies there, and back to Jordan Brooks. He was also asked if there was any pressure on being a first-round draft pick, and he said, if it did, I'd probably drive myself crazy. My expectations for me are higher than anyone else's expectations for me. What would your advice be to a guy coming in as a first-round draft pick?
Just to take your time, learn from the old guys, which he's doing, and he has a great mentor in KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner. And don't try to do anything spectacular, right? If you're in the right spots, if you're lined up correctly, if you're just playing football, plays are going to start to happen for you. Being a first-round pick, you naturally put that pressure on yourself. You hear it from the fans. You hear it from your family. It's all about being true to yourself. Understand what this team needs you to do to be successful. They don't need 150 tackles out of this young man quite yet. Go out there, earn your reps like we heard Robinson talk about, and put yourself in positions to succeed. How do you do that? Just by being technically sound, fundamentally sound, and having fun. Remember, this is a game. You were having fun at Texas Tech. Bring that attitude here to Seattle.
Based on the hat alone, I would assume that's defensive coordinator Ken Norton Jr. who was talking to him out there. Not Alton Robinson, but Jordan Brooks, the first-round draft pick out of Texas Tech, the 27th overall pick in the draft. I can't see him because he hasn't turned around toward us, but that looks like Coach Norton right there. 108 tackles, 20 tackles for loss last season. You said he doesn't need to have double-digit tackles in a game. It doesn't mean he's incapable of doing that, though. Last year at Texas Tech, a game against Oklahoma State, Jordan Brooks had 19 tackles, including 4 tackles for loss and 3 sacks, all in one game.
And that is why he is here. I mean, you put up numbers like that, you're going to turn heads. And eventually he'll get to that point, right? He'll get to a point where this team needs him to have double-digit tackles. That's just not reality right now. So just keep learning. Each week, pick something to get better at. And I'm sure he's going to do that. That's what the great athletes do. They motivate themselves. They have their goals. They reach those goals, and they set new ones. So it's all about the slow progression. Now, if he comes out and he's on the field and he's getting 9, 10, 11 tackles, don't worry. We'll take that too, Brooks.
We have a little time here, so let's take a look at the list of Seahawks draft picks from this season. What are your expectations for each one of them, starting with Brooks?
With Brooks, stat-wise, I expect maybe 30 to 40 tackles. We'll see what he does on special teams. I expect him to be the spell guy when any of those linebackers need a breather.
Of course, Darrell Taylor is still recovering from off-season surgery. Even if he makes it back at some point this season, seeing with what happened with L.J. Collier last year as a rookie, should we just set the expectation for Darrell Taylor very low, and then anything higher would be a welcome surprise?
Yeah, set it low. How can you expect this young man to come out and play lights out when he hasn't gotten the reps, he hasn't gotten the experience? He's kind of like L.J., you mentioned that. So set the bar low, and hopefully he gets into the rotation. And again, give guys a break when they need one.
And give guys like Alton Robinson, who was also taken later in the draft, opportunities to fill that position that you originally expected Darrell Taylor to fill this year. Unfortunately, Taylor unavailable at this point in time.
Yeah, Alton Robinson now, expectations are a little high for him. You know, he was a later draft pick, but he will get reps. The more reps you get, the higher your expectations are going to be. So you expect him to contribute. I wouldn't put a number on it, but if he's causing havoc, if he's getting reps, you see him in there early, then you could expect better play for him later on in the season.
Alton Robinson, a 3-year starter at defensive end at the Syracuse University, a 2-time All-ACC selection. Also attended, as I mentioned earlier in one of the shows, the same high school as cornerback Trey Flowers. We spoke a lot about Trey Flowers yesterday and his competition at that position with Quentin Dunbar. Again, Alton Robinson, you take a look at there as special teams practice is just about underway. The top of the hour, the team will fully be out there stretching, doing all their stuff as we're really winding down training camp here today and tomorrow, and then final cuts on Saturday afternoon.
This is it. This is for those guys on the bubble. I mean, you got to do what you can to try to make this ball club. If you don't make the ball club, at least just leave a lasting impression on this staff so that if another team calls, they can send high recommendations over there. But again, enjoy the moment. For some guys, this is the last time they'll put on a jersey, unfortunately. So enjoy the moment, be in the moment, do the best that you can, and just handle what you can.
Let's head back out to the VMAC. Jordan Babineau standing by. Babs, what do you think about this group?
I'm sorry, Aaron, one more time. I can't hear you. Pete Carroll just walked over to the music and turned it up to 10. The volume is crazy loud here.
Okay, well, let's talk about audio then, because inside CenturyLink Field, we know it's going to be a pretty universal level, whether the offense is on the field or the defense is on the field. How different is that going to be for this team at CenturyLink Field this year?
Yeah, Aaron, I had a chance to check out the mock game last week when the Seahawks were down at CenturyLink Field going through all of their game day preparations and protocols put in and implemented by the NFL. And pumping that noise volume in, it certainly adds an element and feels more like a real football game. But those 12s who bring that live energy every Sunday that the Seahawks are in that stadium, I don't think you can replace that. And certainly it will be something different that the players will have to get used to, but I don't think they'll have any issue completing passes, making tackles, or communicating defensively.
Let me flip it around, because obviously there's that defensive perspective, how we like it to be loud inside CenturyLink Field, but it's not going to be as loud for them. It's going to be louder than the offense is usually expecting it to be at home. Usually everybody is very quiet when the offense is on the field and very loud when the defense is on the field. How might the offense have to adjust to a higher audio level when they're on the field at home?
Yeah, well, I think if we can just tell our sound guy when the Seahawks have the ball to turn the volume down a little bit, that would be helpful. Considering that won't be the case, I think it's something that they approach as they do when they take the road. Bumpus can allude to this a little bit better than I can with some of those hand gestures between the receivers and the quarterbacks. You may also see a little bit more of the quick count or the silent count in terms of cadence from Russell Wilson. That's probably something that you would see from a game plan standpoint if Schottenheimer thinks that there's an advantage that they can take of and for them from their opponent. But with that said, Aaron, I think it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Again, this whole season is going to be predicated on who adjusts the fastest, and certainly with no preseason games, the first few games or the first few series during the regular season could just be that, a series of tests to see what works and what works best for the team and making that adjustment moving forward, that game plan every game.
Thanks a lot, Jordan. As we take a look at number 90, Jaron Reed, along with L.J. Collier, Rasheem Green, the defensive lineman. We're going to talk a lot more about that pass rush coming up on the other side of the break here on Seahawks Training Camp Live on Q13 FOX and Seahawks.com.
Muckleshoot Casino is your destination for more than 3,000 gaming machines, action-packed table games, and the largest smoke-free area in the state. Plus, a newly remodeled casino floor and new center bar. Muckleshoot Casino.
Wherever you are and wherever you go, the 12 connects us to home. Seahawks gear. It's the fabric of the Northwest.
Every digital business operates on a precise formula. Staying connected to customers, suppliers, and partners. Instantly responding to changing business demands. And managing and protecting vast amounts of data. To innovate at speeds never before imagined. Driving it all as one constant. CenturyLink connectivity, cloud, and security solutions. Digital plus business equals more innovation, faster.
Everything is changing day to day, and the first place youth in foster care across Washington state are going is Treehouse. Treehouse is responding to the challenge of COVID-19 by adjusting existing programs to fund immediate needs. That includes rent assistance, laptops, and cell phones are needed too, as many students prepare for online school. Treehouse continues to assess each unique situation and fill gaps. Join in supporting more than 8,000 youth in foster care statewide at treehouseforkids.org.
Guys, you'll pay for this. After this, moving on to the bench press, then some crunchies, then we're hitting the sauna.
The whole process is so easy. Kid gets his cone, I swoop in, parents get the kid a new one. Like clockwork, I tell you.
If this is you on game day, you have a junior 12. Join the team at Seahawks.com/kidsclub today.
Back here on Seahawks Training Camp Live, the penultimate edition of 2020. Tomorrow will be our last edition of Seahawks Training Camp Live as the team gets ready for the upcoming 2020 regular season. Bump, let's talk about the defensive line and specifically its ability to pass rush. Just 28 sacks last season, second to last in the league. They bring in Bruce Irvin and Benson Mayowa. Do you see one guy standing out this season, or will it be more by committee?
It has to be by committee. You expect Jay Reed to kind of lead the charge, but it's hard to expect big sack numbers out of a guy playing in his position. So when it comes to sacks, it's gonna take a village. It's gonna take everybody getting after that quarterback. It'd be nice to have a couple double-digit guys out there, but we don't know what that reality is. When you have so many young guys, you have new guys on that line, I feel like it's gonna take a few games for them to really get moving in the right direction or in the same direction. And let's not forget, that Super Bowl team didn't lead the league in sacks, didn't have a whole bunch of sacks. So let's not put too much pressure on these guys. When you have a back end that contains Jamal Lewis, Diggs, Quentin Dunbar, you got Trey and Shaq on the other side, those guys can help these defensive linemen. They can spend a lot of time over the top, collapsing over these receivers so they can get to the quarterback. So expect numbers to go up, but let's not put too much pressure on these guys.
Again, you're seeing the younger guys working out there, and Alton Robinson and L.J. Collier, Rasheem Green in the mix there too, along with the defensive leader of that line, Jaron Reed. Specifically on Mayowa, and I don't see him right now, but Pete Carroll mentioned that Mayowa is a true pass rusher now. The last time he was in Seattle, he was more of an outside linebacker hybrid. His snap counts have never really been overly high, and he's been able to maximize the opportunities he's gotten in the past. you have to think his snap count's going to rise this year, right?
Yeah, they're going to rise for sure. He's going to be a starter. They're going to depend on that guy. He's one of the guys they can depend on. He's been in the league for a while. He's played on several teams. He had 7.5 sacks last year, so you can lean on him a bit, but this is his first time expected to start. So what's his motor going to be like? What's his conditioning going to be like? Everything that I've seen out of him so far says that he's going to have a good season, but you really don't know because he's never been in this position before. So I expect numbers out of this guy. I expect him to get a lot of snaps. But again, it's going to take everyone contributing to this thing to make it work.
You see the list of Seahawks defensive ends and tackles: Jaron Reed, Poona Ford, L.J. Collier, Rasheem Green. We mentioned Mayowa, Brian Monet, looking to find a mark on the interior of the defensive line as well. You know, speaking of that Super Bowl season, Mayowa was a rookie that year. He made the team as the longest of long shots, and having to go through a regional combine just to be added to rookie minicamp. Then he makes it through rookie minicamp, somehow survives training camp. He said that he's been an underdog his entire career. As you see him here, had to scratch and claw for everything. That chip on his shoulder, he says, never left. He says, I'm still not comfortable 8 years later, and as long as I can stay hungry, I can play this game as long as I want to. And it seems like he's still hungry.
Yeah, it seems like it. You talk about that journey, man. Goodness gracious, regional, making it through rookie camp, not getting cut, and making a nice season out of all that. Nice career out of all of that. That just shows resilience. So I think he's going to take advantage of this opportunity, man. He grew up in Inglewood, right down the street from where I grew up, went to Idaho. I've been rooting for this guy. So nice to see him out there. Nice to see him get this opportunity. Now, what do you do with it? I feel like I've said that 20 times during these broadcasts. What do you do with this opportunity? But that's really what it is. He has one in front of him. Go take it.
Similar journey as you had then. University of Idaho, right down the street from Pullman and the University, or Washington State University.
You're pretty much looking at me in a defensive lineman's body right there.
Well, you had 7 sacks last season, something you never did, but you did have 7 catches in the season, right?
There we go. No, 5.
5 catches, okay, close enough. If you combine the 7 sacks that Mayowa had last year with the 8.5 sacks that Bruce Irvin had, you have more than half of the Seahawks' total sack number from last year. So these are the 2 new additions that are really bringing those numbers to Seattle. And then we have to remember the blitzing ability from other positions, from linebacker to safety. That's something Jamal Adams is really good at as well.
Everything says numbers should go up as far as sacks with this football team. You mentioned Irvin, Benson Mayowa, Jamal Adams got into a mix when he was with the Jets. So everything says numbers should go up. But again, you got to be healthy. You got to get after the quarterback. And like I said, there shouldn't be too much pressure on these guys. That back end is really going to hold it down. So they're going to give these guys time to work. It's about what they do with it. Can you mix up your moves? Are you just going to bull rush? Are you good with your hands? Do you understand what this defense wants you to do? If they are getting after the quarterback and making him step up in the pocket and get outside the pocket, they're doing their job. The other guys should be able to clean it up if they don't get to him.
I spoke with Bruce Irvin this offseason about how all the talk has really been about a player who isn't even on the Seahawks throughout this offseason, and that is Jadeveon Clowney, and whether Bruce Irvin felt the defensive line feels disrespected, that they're not getting enough attention for what it can do. And here's what he had to say.
I mean, I always feel disrespected. That's been my whole 8 years. 60 tackles, I led the league in forced fumbles, and I had the most sacks I ever had, and I still don't get no love. So at the end of the day, it's a production business. And if we go out here, whether it's Jadeveon Clowney, me, or whether it's Rasheem Green, as long as you produce, it don't matter what the name is, though. It's about producing. And I think we got a great room, and I think we got a lot of guys who are capable of producing. You know, people get caught up on the big names. And don't get me wrong, Jadeveon Clowney's a hell of a player. But I also think we will be pretty good without him.
So here's the question for you, Bump. Can you name any of the Carolina Panthers defensive linemen from last season?
Nope. I can't.
The amazing thing is not a single member of the Panthers had double-digit sacks last year, but they finished the season with 53 total sacks. The Seahawks had 28. So the moral of that story, I guess, is this group as a whole can still get the job done without any standout superstars, right?
Yep, they need everyone to eat. It's always nice to have that name that you can depend on, but at one point, no one knew who Doug Baldwin was. At one point, no one knew who Russell Wilson was. It's all about what you do once you're in there, and that's the approach this D-line has to take. Take all of us. Everyone gets a piece. Everyone sits down. Everyone gets after that quarterback. You need them moving as a unit, and when you have a guy like Bruce Irvin who's been in the league, who's been there, who's done that, and is coming from a situation where you and I couldn't even name one guy on that defensive line, that keeps me hopeful. That's the recipe that this defensive line needs.
And there was a point where nobody knew who Benson Mayowa was. And when Bruce Irvin was called on as the 15th overall pick in the Seahawks draft, everybody said, who? Who is that guy? It was on nobody's mock draft, part of a draft class that was ranked an F by a number of analysts out there, a draft class that includes Bruce Irvin, Bobby Wagner, and Russell Wilson.
Shows you how much we know. I mean, it's all a gamble. That's all the NFL draft is. It's a gamble. You know, I've seen guys who were All-Americans and putting up a bunch of numbers in college and come to the league and doesn't work out. And then you see vice versa. You see a 7th-round pick in Chris Carson be one of the leading rushers in the league the past couple of years. So it's a gamble. And the fact that that draft class gave an F grade, again, keeps me optimistic. I'm looking for reasons to believe right now, Aaron. You keep giving them to me, I'll keep taking them.
I'm going to try keep giving it to you. I promise you that. And we saw Chris Carson a second ago. I want to talk about the relationship between Chris Carson and rookie DJ Dallas, both coming from the state of Georgia, which is something, when you go back to Bruce Irvin, he had Chris Clemens, who is also from a hometown of Atlanta. Clemens essentially put his arm around Bruce Irvin as a rookie, even though Irvin was drafted essentially to replace Chris Clemens on this team. And Clemens took him under his wing and said, okay, this is how you do things, young fella. And we are going to be a team. And that's, you know, that's something Carson is doing here with DJ Dallas. We'll talk a lot more about that coming up on the other side of the break here on Seahawks Training Camp Live on Q13 FOX and Seahawks.com.
A taste of what makes Oberto great with Stephen Oberto.
With our new salami, we wanted to make it just as good as the way we used to, and we couldn't find that here. So we went all the way back to northern Italy to source the same product we originally started with. Not only that, but we paired it with some incredible Italian cheeses, Grana Padano, Fontanello, smoked provolone. With our salami, there's less expensive ways to do it, but we don't think there's any better way to do it.
Oberto Specialty Meats. Quality, flavor, heritage.
Introducing the temperature scanning kiosk from Pacific Office Automation, an easy-to-use, no-touch security device that safely checks a person's temperature and grants access for registered employees and guests that meet the safety parameters. It's a perfect fit for any location, providing peace of mind and safer environments for employees and customers. Pacific Office Automation supports the health and safety of our community because you should feel as comfortable in the office as you do in your home. To learn more, visit pacificoffice.com.
Muckleshoot Casino is your destination for more than 3,000 gaming machines, action-packed table games, and the largest smoke-free area in the state. Plus, a newly remodeled casino floor and new center bar. Use your Players Club card to earn points for free play, meals, or cash back. Muckleshoot Casino, the biggest and best in the Northwest. Visit us online to learn more about our safety measures.
I'm a Verizon engineer.
And I'm part of the team building the most
powerful 5G experience for America.
It's 5G ultra wideband, and it's already available in parts of select cities.
Like Los Angeles.
And in New York City.
And it's rolling out in cities around the country.
With massive capacity.
It's like an 8-lane highway compared to a 2-lane dirt road.
25 times faster than today's 4G networks.
In fact, it's the fastest 5G in the world. From the network more people rely on. This is 5G built right, only on Verizon.
Can we just order a pizza?
Ready, done.
How'd you order so fast? Okay, so we should start shopping right now.
Why are you guys playing the same game? La 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 la. How is this not bugging you? How did you find such a cool place to stay?
We continue to count down to the start of the regular season in Atlanta, which is 1 week from this Sunday. A live look at the VMAC and Renton along the shores of Lake Washington. The Seahawks were a franchise record 7-1 on the road last season. Why do you think they were so good away from CenturyLink Field?
That's a good question. Maybe it was scheduling. Maybe it was just being away and feeling like they really have to come together as a group. Whatever it is, I'll take it. And that's what makes me believe that the noise isn't really going to affect this team, right? They were 7-1 on the road, and when that offense is on the field on the road, that's when those stadiums are the loudest. So there we go, another reason for me to believe and be optimistic. So I think they have it figured out. When I was with the Seahawks, we were horrible on the road. I mean, we played an East Coast game. You can just chalk it up as a win for the other team, and we couldn't figure out why. Maybe it was the scheduling, the way we woke up, the hotel we stayed in. I'm not sure, but there's a formula that Pete Carroll and the staff has come up with to make this team successful on the road. Now, they got a bunch of scientists behind all this. Like, it's not just they wake up and say, no, we're going to take this flight, and then we'll get there and figure it out. There's a whole process behind this. They figured out that process.
You were giving me credit for being such an optimist, so I'm going to attempt to balance it out just a little bit as you take a look at Russell Wilson on the field there. I'll bring up a stat, and I'll only say it once. The Seahawks have only won one season opener on the road under Pete Carroll. Wow. And that was the close game against Carolina in 2013 when Jermaine Kearse caught his very first career touchdown catch. 12-7, I believe, was the final score of that game. So what is so difficult about starting a season on the road?
You're just on the road, unfamiliar territory. You don't know the stadium, don't know the hotels. Maybe you don't like the bed you sleep in. I know when I don't get a good night's sleep, I wake up grumpy. My wife doesn't want to talk to me. I mean, there are a lot of factors when it comes to this. Thankfully, they're playing indoors, so I don't think that weather's going to be a factor. It's just luck of the draw sometimes as well. Do you have a young team that's never been on the road? Do you have a veteran team that understands how to conduct themselves on the road? There's so many moving parts when it comes to a football team. You got 53 guys on this roster. You got about 20 coaches. You got your training staff. This is a big production. It's not just moving a team and we're going to go play a football game. There's a lot of things that have to happen right for these trips to work out on their behalf. So let's just hope that they figure this thing out, and we're going to flip that curse when it comes to road wins and the home openers with Pete Carroll.
Always love seeing Russell Wilson and the leadership that he's able to provide on this team. It's going to be a whole new experience, though, for not just for the veterans, not the veterans like Russell Wilson who you're seeing there, but for the rookies like DJ Dallas, who has gotten rave reviews from pretty much everyone in terms of his ability to fit in, to pass protect, to catch the ball out of the backfield, and to essentially just be trustworthy. Here's also a really cool story. He's wearing number 31. Everyone knows that's the same number as Cam Chancellor wore. So DJ Dallas called Cam Chancellor to make sure it was okay that he wore number 31, and Cam gave him his blessing. So don't get mad if you're a fan out there seeing a new guy in 31. He actually went out there and asked Cam himself. I love hearing that DJ had the deference, the respect for a legendary Seahawk, that he ended up doing something like that.
Yeah, that's what you do, youngsters. You call the OGs, as Bruce Irvin is now, and you let them know. And he understands the history. That means he sat down. If he wasn't aware of the Seahawk history, that means that he sat down, he Googled, he opened up his laptop and say, look, okay, who are the guys before me that wore this number? And when you see a name like Cam Chancellor, you have nothing but respect. So that's a classy move right there by a rookie. That approach right there will take him a long way.
DJ was also asked today about being a pro, and here's what he had to say.
I just try to be a pro, man. I came out early from Miami, and at Miami they just always preach to us, be a pro, and with all of this stuff that I was getting in college, and then I kind of carried that into like the actual pros. So I just try to approach every day, be a pro, take every day one day at a time, and my big thing for me, my saying and the saying that I live by is make the bad days look good and make the good days look great, and I just try to live by that.
Make the bad days look good and make the good days look great. I think I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to pass that one on to my son, and that's honestly the best approach, because believe it or not, you can be getting paid millions of dollars to play a game, but you're going to wake up some days and you're just not going to feel it. You're just not going to want to do it. Your body's going to be banged up. Mentally, you're stressed out. So you got to find a way to get going. And then you get on the field and maybe your body's not responding. Your mind is somewhere else. So how do you make those bad days look good? You do that with attitude and effort, and that's what we're seeing out of him.
And DJ Dallas also gave credit to football coach Ron Dugans, who is now a Florida State receivers coach, but he was at Miami when DJ was there, and he said Coach Dugans taught him all the ins and outs of being a receiver. He forced him to get on the jug machine and practice with tennis balls and footballs, and it's really paid off with his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. And with more on that, let's head out to the VMAC and rejoin Jordan Babineau. And we always talk, Jordan, about versatility being the key to especially for a young guy earning a roster spot, and we see the versatility with number 31, DJ Dallas.
Yeah, Aaron, you guys talking about DJ Dallas and what he's going to have to do to continue to resurrect himself on this roster and eventually onto the playing field. Chris Carson dealing with injury. Of course, Carlos Hyde is the new running back in the Seahawks uniform. You take someone at that running back position and understanding the checks, understanding mostly how to protect the quarterback. Pass protection is usually one of the things that you see running backs struggle with when they make that transition from college to pro. But all of the other things he can do well. Run the ball, catch the ball out of the backfield. I think the biggest thing is going to be how well he's able to pick up those blitz counts and protect the quarterback.
You know, he also mentioned that it's a perfect mix of veterans and young guys in the running back room. He kind of takes the knowledge from veterans like Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde, and then Travis Homer then takes those nuggets and helps him interpret that from a younger player's perspective. Have you ever heard of something like that, where there's sort of this interpretation of what it's like to be a new or a young guy on the team, getting this great sage advice from maybe the older veterans and then having to sort of interpret it to the way a younger player could relate to it?
Well, Aaron, I think I need an interpreter too sometimes in life. But I guess that's a fascinating thing about this locker room. I mean, these guys are unselfish to have that kind of approach when normally you see guys scrapping to make the team, not necessarily rooting against each other, but I'm certainly not going to help you get the advantage of me if there's one final roster spot left between the two of us. I think it's certainly a tribute to the kind of guys that's in this locker room, what they're teaching in the program. And, it probably happened when you saw Shaq and Shaquem Griffin kind of have that rookie and that second-year relationship when the brothers were dealing with the transition from college to pro. So hats off to what they're doing in that running back locker room.
Babs, you talk about guys passing knowledge down to each other. Is this something that's been in this locker room for a long time, like when you were there and then other guys were there? Is this something that's been passed on to the next guy, or is this a recent development?
Yeah, Bumpers, I would say, certainly you see that a lot in the older guys. It was one of the things that I saw in my career when I started to transition, and I knew that part of my experience and part of my contribution to the team was also providing knowledge for the young guys. And I would always take the rookies. I remember, my last year here with the Seahawks, Pete Carroll's first year, it was Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor in the meeting rooms with me during lunch, and I was showing them, how to read tape or how to read offenses and different things to anticipate, and it ended up being both of those guys who took my position. So, again, I think at some point you start to see this in the young players. I mean, that's great, but the veterans, really learn this. So for the young players to get this early, I certainly think it's commendable.
Babs, I'm giving you all the credit for Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor's success with the Seahawks. You taught them everything that they know.
Well, I won't take all the credit. Those guys made a lot of plays.
They certainly did. Thanks a lot, Babs. We'll come back to you in just a couple of minutes. By the way, Travis Homer has been taking DJ Dallas around the area, showing him the city from Seattle to the east side. So he's certainly appreciated in Dallas having someone so close around him all the time as they go back as teammates at the University of Miami at Florida. We'll have much more here live from Seahawks Training Camp on Seahawks.com and Q13 FOX coming up next.
So as you can see, we've got a fast-moving accumulation of tortillas coming in from the west, with what appears to be some shredded cheese moving up from the south. Now mix that with an incoming wave of fat-free pinto beans and you've got yourself a... Oh my goodness, will you look at that? some delicious weather we're having.
We all want to belong.
We want respect and understanding.
We want someone to have our back.
We want a better life for the ones we love. That's why over 1 million of us are members of BECU.
Because we know that together we can do so much more than we ever could apart.
It's not banking as usual. And that's exactly the point.
So join us.
BECU, more than just money.
Every digital business operates on a precise formula. Staying connected to customers, suppliers, and partners. Instantly responding to changing business demands. And managing and protecting vast amounts of data. To innovate at speeds never before imagined. Driving it all as one constant. CenturyLink connectivity, cloud, and security solutions. Digital plus business equals more innovation, faster.
I'm Ed Hall, recently retired Army veteran. Last November, I was blessed with the opportunity to lead our team and hear the chants of the 12s onto this field. In our lives, 1 out of every 3 people will need blood. Many of those people veterans. BloodWorks Northwest is running pop-up stands all over the city and also right here in CenturyLink Field. You can go to bloodworksnw.org, find one of the pop-up stands, or get down here like the 12s you are and donate. Go Hawks.
A taste of what makes Oberto great with Stephen Oberto.
With our new salami, we wanted to make it just as good as the way we used to, and we couldn't find that here. So we went all the way back to northern Italy to source the same product we originally started with. Not only that, but we paired it with some incredible Italian cheeses, Grana Padano, Fontanello, smoked provolone. With our salami, there's less expensive ways to do it, but we don't think there's any better way to do it.
Oberto Specialty Meats. Quality, flavor, heritage.
We're just a week and a half from the start of the Seahawks regular season at the Falcons on September 13th. Home games against the Patriots and Cowboys, at the Dolphins, home for the Vikings in a primetime game, and then the divisional schedule starts after a bye week in Arizona, home for the Niners, 2 straight road games at Buffalo and Los Angeles, home for the Cardinals, at Philly, again the 2 home games against the New York teams, the Giants and the Jets, at the Washington football team, home for the Rams, and then a regular season finale at the 49ers, just the reverse of what happened last year with the regular season finale being against the Niners at home at CenturyLink Field. The Seahawks coming up just inches short of an NFC West divisional title. How do you make these decisions the next couple of days as you cut down to the final 53-man roster, especially with some of the younger guys who you haven't been able to see in a preseason game?
It's going to be tough. I think they watch more mock game film than they ever have before in their lives, this coaching staff, when it comes to evaluating players. It's really about those guys in the box, right? The running backs, the D-line, the offensive linemen, the linebackers. Those are the ones who are tough to evaluate because you're never really going full speed. At the point of impact, you ease up a little bit. On the outside, I think you have a better idea of who can do what. So they're really going to rely on, one, the mock game, practice film, and then personality. What sets them apart? Is DJ Dallas a guy that we want in this locker room for a long time? Is he on time? Does he treat people with respect? Does this guy not follow the rules? So once you get out of football, you start breaking down what type of dudes you want in your locker room, what type of guys really embody the culture that you want this organization to have.
Let's head back out to the facility. Jordan Babineau standing by. Babs, any more insight on how these decisions are going to be made when they haven't been able to see every man on the 80-man roster in a preseason game?
Yeah, Aaron, I think that's probably, always the toughest time for John Snyder and Pete Carroll and his coaching staff to make is identifying those players that they're going to go to war with throughout the season. And I remember talking to Snyder, just around this time every season for the last few years about this being the toughest few days and decisions that he's going to have to make. And without having an offseason or without having a preseason to evaluate these players fully, certainly the reps that they get out here and practice will be paramount.
We're taking a look at
Aaron, we just about. Sorry, Aaron. The guys are just underway. They just started their offensive and defensive practices and just separated on the 2 different fields. Again, Bumpus, if you can remember when I was a player, I certainly felt like practice felt like a game. Every rep and opportunity that you had to get on the field you always had the mindset that somebody's always watching. And of course, this year, they'll be watching even greater with the microscope, trying to identify those players in which that they think will be the best players to win football games and put this team in position for another championship run.
Yes, when I was playing, I was undrafted just like Babs, snuck through the back door, and literally had to sit in my locker before practice and get myself going like, okay, it's do or die. You never know when your number is going to be called. And I had the opportunity to go up against guys like Babs and Marcus Trufant, Deion Grant, all these older guys who would challenge me every single day and really push me on the field, and then in the locker room, take me under their wings and take me out to go golf or something like that. So everyone is in a different position. These guys who are getting these first team snaps are a bit more secure than the guys who are 2 or 3s.
Babs, I have a question for you quickly, specifically about the lack of preseason games. Normally, coaches keep things very close to the vest during preseason. They don't show you all the tricks of the trade, so to speak. But really, there is no film on any team because there haven't been preseason games. So how different is this year going to be, and how much of a surprise are we going to see on the field from various teams out there? They kind of have that in their back pocket, don't they?
Yeah, Aaron, look, there's always a little element of surprise, particularly in week 1. But here's one thing I know about the NFL and I know about coaches. They want to win, and they want to win now. Trust me, these coaches will waste no time pulling out all of the tricks that they can, particularly against someone like the Atlanta Falcons, who they're familiar with. You go across the league and you start to evaluate what teams did toward the end of the season, if there were any structural changes in terms of coaching staff or their offensive philosophy in that terms. But other than that, most of all, teams will remain who they are last year. They move into that offseason building on that. There's always a few wrinkles, certainly you can expect for that. But believe me, I think by the first quarter, or at least the first half, for sure, you'll know exactly what kind of game plan and how you're going to be attacked by your opponent.
It will be another fun chess match between Pete Carroll and a former Seahawks defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn in Atlanta. We're going to have much more coming up after the break as we're taking you to the bottom of the hour here on Seahawks Training Camp Live on Q13 FOX and Seahawks.com.
Grandma, don't worry about those. I'll get to them later.
Oh, come here.
You didn't have to do that.
It's just a little something, but it's ours.
Ours?
For us, all of us. Our opportunities, our celebrations, and support of our community.
You think we'll win?
We'll see, but I think we already have.
When you play Washington's lottery, all of Washington wins.
The world is changing quickly, and while things are getting back to normal, the truth is, normal will be different. For him, her, and the rest of us. But change is what we make of it. And our job is still to help you figure it all out. Q13 News. All local. All together.
A taste of what makes Oberto great with Stephen Oberto.
With our new salami, we wanted to make it just as good as the way we used to, and we couldn't find that here. So we went all the way back to northern Italy to source the same product we originally started with. Not only that, but we paired it with some incredible Italian cheeses, Grana Padano, Fontanello, smoked provolone. With our salami, there's less expensive ways to do it, but we don't think there's any better way to do it.
Oberto Specialty Meats. Quality, flavor, heritage.
What is anticipation? Is it making an entrance? Or making a move? Is it going out? Or going all in? Is it a chance encounter? Or maybe just a night out with your friends. What are you waiting for? Seattle's closest. Snoqualmie Casino.
Back here on Seahawks Training Camp Live. At the start of training camp, I asked Michael Bumpus who he was very excited to see, and that guy, Freddie Swain, who you see number 18, was the first player out of your mouth. We don't really know what he's been able to do during training camp through the mock games and everything else. It's not to say that he hasn't done anything. We just haven't seen him in preseason games. So he's part of the question of how do we make heads or tails out of this receiver competition and who will make the final roster.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's one of the guys that I think probably isn't going to make it. When you're coming in as a rookie, you have to stay healthy. You have to show them that you can play ball. When you don't play in the mock games, you don't play often in the mock games, you don't show them what you can do. And then they bring in P. Richardson. He's one of the guys, when he saw that signing, he's probably like, goodness gracious, what else do I have to do? Who else do I have to battle to make this team? So he's on the bubble, but I think he's good enough to where if he doesn't end up here, he's going to end up somewhere else. I'm unfortunate for the guy, but he still has a few more days to try to make an impression.
Let's head back out one more time to Jordan Babineau. Jordan, usually before the fourth preseason game, when some of these bubble guys are getting so much time out there, the advice is to go all out. In what capacity can any of these bubble guys go all out in practice today and or tomorrow? I mean, they really don't have those opportunities, do they?
No, Aaron, and that's the unfortunate part about having to deal with the NFL season through what we're impacting as a world through coronavirus. Certainly unfortunate for a lot of athletes across the country, even the college athletes who may even have to forfeit a year of eligibility. When we look at these players that's battling to make this roster, you know, I think it goes back to their whole, you know, art of work, their whole campaign at the start of training camp. Certainly today wouldn't be the one thing that would separate them from making a decision of making a team or not. It's a collection of work over that time. But when you're practicing, you can't go all out, you can't tackle players to the ground, and sometimes you just have to be in position to make the play. So I think, you know, Aaron, I don't know. I think the question is to ask Snyder, you know, what are they doing different in terms of their evaluation process? And I'm sure they have something there. Bumpus alluded to the fact that it's a culture thing, and maybe that's a little bit that goes into it, but at the end of the day, these guys got to make plays on the football field, and it's up to the staff to find the best players and the best combination to do that.
Jordan, great day today for you. You going to join us again tomorrow?
Yeah, looking forward to it. And you know what? It should be a better outing for me as well. Consider this my preseason one game, wearing this mask while trying to talk to you guys. You can't see this infectious smile underneath this mask, but it's there, Aaron. It's there.
We know it's there. We can just picture it. And in the competition between you and the mask, Jordan Babineau won, mask 0. You have handled that very well today. Thank you very much, Jordan. We'll have much more from you tomorrow out at the facility as you take a look at Freddie Swain and the speed that he has. Unable to make a catch right there with Ugo Amadi in coverage. But final thought from you, Michael?
Hey, just keep your head up. Those guys who are on the bubble, stay positive, keep going hard. You got a couple more days to make an impression. The older guys, the OGs, get ready to go. It's almost time.
A reminder, we will be with you one more day tomorrow afternoon, an earlier start for us on Q13 FOX and Seahawks.com. It is a 1 o'clock start. We will be with you from 1 to 2 o'clock. It's all right here on your official Seahawks station. For Jordan Babineau and Michael Bumpus, I'm Aaron Levine. We'll have much more coverage tonight on Q13 News at 4, 5, 9, and 10 o'clock.